Hey there, folks. Chaps here, bringing another audio commentary. Today I'm going to be doing a human mirror game on Secret Valley, and this looks like it's a BattleNet game, so no observers. We're going to have to turn off Fog of War. But if you're watching this off tft.realplayers.com, then get this synced up to the 2-minute mark. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, then just sit back and enjoy your sedentary lifestyle. Anyways, yeah, this is a human mirror, as I said, and so there's a lot of different strategies, really. It's one of the most interesting mirrors, I think, just because of the wide variety of strategies that you can actually go. Obviously, there are, sort of, in the late game, sort of Spellbreaker mirror is quite common, and also extremely boring, so hopefully we won't have too much of that, and there is such a tremendous human countering system. Obviously, sort of Spellbreakers are countered by Knight, which are countered by Griffin, which are counted by Dragonhawks, you know, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's really one of the more fun mirrors, just because I think it can be adapted sort of so much more interestingly than most of the other mirrors. Where generally, like for example, an elf mirror, you can there are a variety of strategies you can pick, but really once you've picked one, you do have to sort of stick to it. And we are going to be seeing, by the looks of it, an Archmage for both players. The players are Lyra, who's red, and Nick, who's blue. So at least I hope he's Lyra. I hope that's not his clan name. I'm unfortunately unfamiliar with both these players, but I'm told it's a very good replay. So hopefully we'll get some good fun out of it. And we are seeing pretty similar builds for both sides. Looks like Nick is actually going for some early scouting, although actually turning his militia around a bit here, and just we will get to the 2-minute mark any second. Don't worry. And looks like he has actually brought his militia out near Lyra's natural expansion. It's a bit of an odd choice. If you are going to unpause in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Okay, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 3, hopefully you've got that. And so yes, it's going to be an Archmage mirror, and we are going to be seeing pretty standard creeping from both sides by the looks of it to start out with, at least. And meanwhile, Nick is actually attacking this one tree with his scout peasant, and maybe he's going to put a farm here just for some quite interesting scouting. It's going to sort of have a very restricted field of view, but it is going to be pretty hard to take down as well, and so it's certainly a pretty interesting place to put it. Obviously it'll mean that he'll have advance warning if Lyra's going to go and expand, or even just go for some creeping early on. And Nick now picking up a claws of attack. That's a decent item, I guess. None of these items are actually brilliant for an Archmage, but certainly it's better than a ring of protection, which is what Lyra got. So I guess you know, there's varying levels, and it looks like we are going to be seeing Nick going for a bit more aggressive, a bit more creeping here, whereas Lyra's now got his level 2 and is happy just to go and harass, and that's pretty common. And unfortunately for him, Nick does already have an arcane tower up, so it's going to be pretty hard for his Archmage to harass. And it looks like Lyra's actually getting a bit lost here, not quite sure what to do, but it looks like he is going to bring in an Archmage. Obviously, if you just move your Archmage close enough to the farm and then summon it, you can summon it right over into the base, and obviously it will take a little while for the arcane tower to take down, considering that it's going to put priority first on that Archmage. But that's quite nice for Nick, really, because he did manage to take that Lyra's Archmage down to 0 mana, whereas he still has in excess of 200. And slightly better items and slightly more experience as well. So I think he's made slightly better use of his time early on, but he hasn't really. But sort of this is a very small factor in terms of the whole game. Both players are now teching, so we're not going to be seeing any expansions. That's pretty expected in Human Mirror. Obviously, it is possible to expand, but it is so nice when you're in Human Mirror to actually get some decent tech up, and then also get a second hero. Obviously either Panda or Mountain King, depending on the situation, are perfectly acceptable, and generally those are the two you go for. But if you're going to be doing some quite quick pushing, or you're being harassed a lot or something, a Panda can be quite nice just because it's so instantaneous and has a pretty nice area of effect spell. But otherwise, I think if you're playing a longer game, Mountain King's pretty nice. And then also if they do end up going to tier 3, which is certainly a possibility, because things like Knights and Griffins and stuff are certainly always on the table, then Paladin is pretty standard as a third hero. We'll have to see exactly what they decide to go for when we get to that point. But we are now seeing these footmen just sort of trying to surround other footmen, and it's so tricky to do that. I mean, it does come down to skill and luck. I think there's an element of luck in getting us around like that, where no matter how good you are, there's always going to be sort of a bit of just sort of hoping that your one footman manages to go one space to the left or to the right as required. And some quite aggressive creeping now by Lyra fortunately not scouted by Nick, and so Nick's gonna probably creep out this fountain, and I think that's probably some riskier creeping, considering Lyra might actually now come down once he's done finishing this camp, and we'll have to see whether Nick will be able to take down this Drake, although he's not actually attacking the Drake. Oh, he's switched to it now. He wants to pull that Drake out, and he's just doing that now. It's a bit of a shame that he didn't manage to he didn't start attacking this Drake a bit earlier, because as I said, time might be quite important considering how much damage Lyra's taken. He's almost certainly going to want to head down to that fountain, and unfortunately Lyra not quite hitting level 3, but does now have some pretty decent items. Obviously, both players do now have Boots of Speed, which is quite nice, because that's really useful in terms of just Archmages can be so easily focused down in Human Mirror, especially if you go for a Mountain King second. And a nice surround there by Nick, just managing to, even though Lyra does now get level 3, it looks like he's not actually going to manage to take anything down. He is putting a lot of focus on this one footman, but he does have to TP out, and I don't think that footman's going to die. And meanwhile, that Drake has managed to heal back up again. And Nick almost being careless and losing his footman to a creep there, but Nick does down to just pull out these creeps, and we'll continue to creep out that one Drake. And meanwhile, it looks like Lyra knows that Nick's busy, and so he's just going to head off to the other fountain. Might creep it, or might just heal up here. He does have a lot of footmen, so he could at least creep out sort of the easy creeps and leave the Drake for later, so that's what he decides to do. His Archmage actually within range of healing now has moved in, and meanwhile this one Drake for Nick is now just being finished off, and we'll have to see what items. There's some pretty nice items he can get from this creep, but Boots of Quathlos is certainly not one. It's pretty much the worst item he could have got, and he will probably want to sell that. It's some pretty nice gold. Meanwhile, both sides are now teching to tier 3, and we are seeing some pretty interesting choices. We're seeing a Blacksmith and Arcane Sanctum for Lyra, and it looks like the exact same thing for Nick, but Nick's going to need to cancel his Blacksmith because of this incoming harass. Mountain King now out for Nick as well. Obviously he wasn't being harassed too much, so he was pretty happy to go for a Mountain King. And Nick now building his Blacksmith within his base, but again being harassed, and will probably need to call Militia, which is never too fun to do against the mass footman when you're in the middle of teching, because you are going to lose a fair few, and it is going to cause you a fair amount of trouble. But Nick is now coming in with the rest of his army, and this is going to cause trouble for Lyra, who's going to need to get out, and will probably lose at least one footman. Yeah, he bolts the low footman, so he does manage to get that kill, and he doesn't continue chasing with his Mountain King. He does pass his boot to the Mountain King, though. That's pretty sensible. You do generally want to do that, just because it means that you can chase down heroes so much easier when your Mountain King's able to run so quickly. And level 3 Archmages on both sides, I think. Yes, on both sides, and Nick hasn't actually sold his Boots of Quathlos. I'm a bit surprised by that, but we do now have level 1 Mountain Kings as well for both sides, so pretty even mirror match at this point, really. They couldn't really have differed much less if they had tried. And a bolt now on Lyra's Archmage, but it will manage to get away. And Mountain King actually now left without a bolt, which is a bit of a shame, because it's gonna. And but sorry, this is Nick's Mountain King, and just because he's not gonna be able to capitalize on this little creep jack that he got here. And both sides are now hitting tier 3 as well. Right now, and so we'll get to see. We'll probably be seeing a fair few knights, probably mixed, probably with priests and mortars mixed in. That is sort of quite a strong strategy these days. It has been used to some pretty good effect, and both sides have been going for the same strategy. So obviously there wasn't too much harassment going on, because both sides were going for a fairly quick tech with no expansion. And Dispel being researched by Lyra, and I don't know if Nick's actually got it now already. No, he doesn't have it yet, but he will probably want to get it pretty soon, because obviously getting one of those water elementals is pretty nice, because they are pretty much free experience, and you have so much mana on your priests that having enough for heal isn't really a big problem. And meanwhile, a bit of a fight going off here. Nick's Mountain King is now hitting level 2 after killing one priest, and actually a second priest now goes down for Lyra as well, so a bit of a bad situation. But Nick's now lost his priest as well. Obviously they're just such easy focusing targets, considering that water elementals do so much damage to them, and if you can get good positioning you can take them out so quickly. And level 2 now for both heroes as well. Wand of Mana Stealing has one charge left for Lyra, and he probably use it on his Mountain King against Nick's Mountain King, just because that's sort of the most effective thing to steal mana from and to give mana to. And meanwhile, I'm amazed that Nick actually stuck by and fought all these militia, and he has taken a fair bit of damage, but it has meant that He's done a fair bit of damage to Lyra's economy, and you know, a bit of a surround here off on this Mountain King. Although Nick's Mountain King now very low after being bolted, his Mountain King does go down, and Lyra staffs his Mountain King away at the last second. Very nice play, but now Nick is hitting level 4 in his Archmage. Level 2 aura is obviously going to be very nice, especially in conjunction with that Mountain King, but that Mountain King won't be back for a while. The first Knight is now out for Lyra, and Paladin 3rd is now out for Nick, and Lyra now has his Paladin out as well, but it's a bit later into the fight, and this Paladin does just heal up the Archmage. Obviously, you never really want to be at full mana, especially if you're around a Brilliant Aura, and so if you can just use your mana on something that's sort of mildly effective like that, it's pretty nice. And meanwhile, Lyra does now have a mortar team as well, so we will be going for a pretty standard human strategy, and it looks like that's the exact same thing that we're seeing from Nick at this point. He is now building a mortar team and a knight, so it looks like we'll be seeing pretty similar strategies. Meanwhile, Nick has actually built a farm at just near Lyra's expansion. Obviously that's going to go down pretty quickly as soon as it's gutted out with by Lyra, but it's going to provide some very nice scouting. Obviously it's very cheap, and it is